What's going on? It's the Daily Race Informed Players podcast. If you're watching on DRF Live, welcome. If you listen to us normally on iTunes, SoundCloud, the website, the whole nine, whatever it is, welcome back. This is the first one of the week. DRF Tournament Editor Peter Thomas Fornatal, at DRF Formulator Mike Hogan. I'm Matt Bernier. Fellas, we've got a short show for us today. Well, we're considering short.
Yeah,
most of the time we'll ramble on.
Yeah, it's because we are not
get a little sidetracked. We got about 40 minutes, so we'll go through just a couple of the races from this past weekend. We'll kind of tee up things that are to come for this week. It's a bit of a quiet week this coming week. We got a couple of races. We got the Obeah from Delaware and a couple other things. But all in all, last weekend we had the Foster from Churchill, we had the Fleur de Lis, we had the Poker at Belmont, and then we had the Shoemaker and the Adoration out at Santa Anita. We'll just take them one by one. Start with the Foster overall. What are the thoughts on Noble Bird beating Lee and cast of characters?
I think Noble Bird's for real.
Okay.
I don't mean to diminish him with what I'm going to say next, but I do think the racetrack was against Lee, and I think that effort might have been a little bit better than it looked. We were talking about this a little bit before we came on the air, but I thought it was a pretty clear speed and inside track. And while Mike made a case on last week's pod for Panigale, I thought basically Noble Bird got the exact trip you wanted to get, chasing in my mind, was a hopeless long shot. Sorry.
That's okay. He ran like it.
Yeah.
So I would just not to take away from Noble Bird. I think that's nice to have a second big race in a row. But people who want to say, "Oh, Lee, reacted from the trip or whatever," I don't buy that. I think this horse is serious. I think we're going to see the best Lee maybe next time.
What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with any of that. I thought they were certainly the two best in the race, and
well clear of your boy in third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who ran fine.
He is what he is.
Yeah.
You think?
I said it going in. Oh, yeah, well, that's right. I didn't get to talk to you guys about it.
Right.
I said going in. I mean, Opportunity's not that good.
Yeah, Mike relayed your opinion on the Friday pod.
Yeah,
that you were sort of
He's
off.
not that good. I mean, I like him, but I mean, he's not a proper Grade 1 horse.
Right.
I don't think.
No,
Right,
I think
and I think absolutely the news for the story, which for the race, which I think we all kind of knew going in, but the confirmation that Commissioner, I always get those two mixed up.
You did it again!
I did it again! Commissioner is not a true Grade 1 horse, and I don't want anybody out of the Pimlico Special.
DRF podcast drinking game. Every time Mike conflates Constitution and Commissioner, take a shot.
Yeah, it's because I also mixed up Todd Pletcher and Frank Fletcher, so...
I don't know if I'm going to go. I don't think Commissioner is a superstar, but at the end of the day, I also think he's as bad as what we saw. I mean, Pletcher's.
He can't be.
I said it in the preview. Pletcher's numbers at Churchill Downs in Grade 1s is awful.
Yeah.
3 for 56. I also think when you factor in, I don't think there was an outright speed bias. I think it was speed friendly, a little bit friendlier than most times at Churchill. The fact that Commissioner was so far back, I don't think that helped his cause either. I think he's a grinder. I think he wants more distance. Mm-hmm. I think 9's too sharp. I think he wants at least 9.5 or 10. That puts him behind the 8 ball. There's not many spots for him to run. Other than that, I mean, Opportunity, he is what he is. I don't think he's that good. Cat Burglar, I gave him an outside chance and he folded. That's okay. So I've overestimated him quite a few times now.
One of those horses.
Yeah, really. Where I look at it
all
and
have
say
them.
The price is there, and you flirt with it a little bit, and you kind of give off the impression that maybe you could. But I just think the top two, coming out of it, I was unsure what to think. I had said going into it right before the race that strictly Lee is the best horse in the race. Mm-hmm. If he runs his race and bounces back to that pre-Dubai form, he wins. Mm-hmm. I may have been wrong. Not saying that I think he's still the best horse in the race, but he did bounce back, and he didn't win. I just think he ran into Noble Bird, who may be one that's turning into something that could be decent down the road.
Yeah. We'll have to agree to disagree on the track issue, and I think time will give us a perspective. But I think Lee ran. I mean, I think you were right in your assessment of him, and I think it was a little bit the track that got him.
I mean, I don't know. Guess what? For me, if it were an outright speed bias, Panigale wouldn't run last. Panigale.
I just don't think he belonged in the race.
Boy, I tell you what, though, and Majestic Harbor ran 4th.
Right.
He was last.
I thought great.
So that's my point, though. For me, if it were an outright speed bias, he would have no shot.
I just, going through the charts and watching the tape again. But see, I think you're being too like binary about how biases work. I think horses who don't fire aren't going to be helped by a bias. To me, for me, what I do is just go through and look at every single chart and see where the winners on that surface came from. And to me, it was pretty clear that nobody closed. Who finished in the top 2, I don't think, on the day. Lee was probably the best example.
Tiz Windy, we'll talk about her in a minute.
She ran great.
And she came from out.
Yeah, no, she did come from far back. But again, she was my pick, so I was happy to upgrade that.
I was with you. I picked Tiz Windy, too. For me, though, no, I guess it comes down to what your definition of a bias is. We've made it clear. I'm the last person that's going to say there's a bias. Did it help to be forwardly placed? Sure. I don't think that it was a difference maker. I think the 2 best horses ran 1-2.
Yeah, I would agree. And you say you may be the last person. I think I'm the last person to actually, because I think, and I'm not saying this to knock you at all, Pete.
Go ahead.
Because I don't think you do this, but I think there are a lot of people that think, oh my God, that long shot won. I had no idea how that horse won. It must be a bias.
Yeah, that's not.
No, look, I just go back to me out at Santa Anita. I feel like I was the only person in the freaking building that said when after Take Charge Brandy won, it's not a bias.
Right.
She ran a monster race.
Right.
That's the only. It's just you need to have a string of unrealistic results for me to look at it and say, no, something's not right here.
And maybe we move on to Frivolous, because I think Frivolous might be why some people think along those lines, because she was forwardly placed and she held on at a huge price.
And and that's one where, like you say, the Foster, they got 107s going forward. We'll see. And we'll talk about Noble Bird.
I didn't look at the figures. It was 107?
107
okay.
Came back as the number. So Lee, that's basically on par with him. Noble Bird, a new career top, but that's to be expected with a lightly raced, improving 4-year-old. The Fleur de Lis Frivolous wins at $1,000,000 to 1. And that's probably the one, like you say, that people are kind of gauging it off of.
Hey, Eric Wing gave Frivolous out right here on the DRF Players podcast.
And I think that's the thing, though. Frivolous, although she was awful in the La Troyenne, she was awful. She didn't pick her feet up.
She was sick.
Vicky Oliver came out and said that she came back. She was like glazed over. She didn't look right.
She had a fever.
She had a fever the next day. She just wasn't feeling good. This is a horse that has won at Churchill going the distance in the past. Just because she was forwardly placed, I'm not ready to, and she was $1,000,000 to 1. Look, sheer drama. It's not like she was up on the engine. She was mid-pack, and then Tiz Windy was a little bit farther. Those are the ones that ran 1, 2, 3. I'm not ready to say that was a speed bias. Yeah, for me, a speed bias is a conveyor belt.
For me, I use a combination of my own visual observations and also that racing flow data. For the record, they use a mathematical formula that had it as a very significant favoring front runners. But mean that that's right or that I'm right or that you're wrong. It's the best thing to do with this, and a lot of times in this situation, I'll make a note, I'll use Formulator and make a note, like possible inside bias day, and the horses will come back and run again, and it'll tell you. You know what I mean? It'll give you a lot more indication as to what the track was, and then you can amend your notes as you go forward. I think it's, and I agree with both what you guys said about way too, there's, Jake Jacobs, actually, the Racing Flow guy, has a famous quote, which I love, which is that there are more track bias players than there are track biases.
Yeah.
In other words, everybody's way too quick. But there are some instances it pays to just try to make your best assessment, use what data you can, and then you follow it going forward, and you got to be flexible.
I think for me, the biggest reason that I am so stubborn, or whatever you'd like to call it, about being against not, proclaiming that there is a bias is because I fear that that's a quick way for you to screw up your handicapping.
Yeah.
That the minute you start saying, who's going to go to the lead and stay there, and well, now you've changed it. You changed fundamentally what you're trying to do. And actually, something else that we don't have in the rundown, but we're going to have to talk about when we get to the race.
Throw it in there.
When we get to the race. I think it can just change the way that you look at a race.
I think I know where you're going.
You do know where I'm going. We'll talk about that shortly.
Yeah, but I think that's why it's nice to have some sort of objective data, and perhaps Daily Racing Forum in the next few months might be having some tools that can help in these type of discussions.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the Fleur de Lis? Overall thoughts? Gold medal dancer. I was way against her. She ran a clunker. I was with you, Pete. I liked Tiz Windy. I was shocked.
The price.
I was shocked.
2 to 1 we opened up at.
Well, and here's the thing. I was doing the NBC thing, and I was mortified when I turned around and she's opening at 2. I go, Jesus, are you kidding me? I'm going to give out chalk to a horse that I don't think is the most likely winner in the race. The other horse I was way against, and she didn't pick her feet up, was the horse from California. that Smith rode.
Oh, right.
I didn't
sweet
think
addiction.
if you watched that race prior at Santa Anita, I mean, it was a joke. It was a joke. She got 3/4 and 13 and change or 14 and change at Santa Anita.
Right.
I mean, that might as well be 117. They were walking. So,
I mean, the last thing I'll say about the bias thing is, you know, and I might have said it at the podcast. I know I've said it to you guys independently, and I said it after Take Charge Brandy won. In North American racing, in North American dirt racing especially, you are better served by being forwardly placed. It's as simple as that.
You know, profiles, you got to
right.
factor that into any bias work you want to do.
Exactly. So people that are thinking in those terms often forget that it's a lot easier to win when you're on the lead. You know,
a lot less can go wrong.
A lot less can go wrong. You know.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think that's the way that you need, especially if you're new to the game. Go into it and think on dirt, you're much better off being forwardly placed. And on grass, I don't want to say you're not benefited by being forwardly placed, but just know that it's a different style of running.
It's not as big a deal.
Right.
It's a big deal, but it's not as big a deal. But
We'll
don't tell that to the turf riders in New York.
Well,
Ooh.
here we are. Here we are. The poker, and I'm going to really go off on a tangent, so I want the two of you do your thing. And I don't mean tangent. I shouldn't say that. I'm going to go on a rant.
Rant, go.
You guys start. No, you guys start. The poker is won by King Kreesa.
Yes.
What do we think?
Cool old boy. Awesome to see him in the winner's circle. Not quite sure what the jock on Heart to Heart was doing, basically conceding the race. That horse was never comfortable a step in that race, wanted his head, has only won on the lead, as I recall.
Yes.
And only didn't get the lead last time because, unnoted by the chart comment, didn't break well. And that's why I didn't have the lead last time at Monmouth. I thought it was... I thought if you ran the race a bunch of times, you'd get a bunch. You wouldn't see that result too often. But good on King Kreesa.
Yeah.
Cool old boy.
Yeah.
Cool horse. And, you know.
New York bred, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sort of a fun result. Congratulations to Connections, David Donk. But, yeah, that was wasn't a good result for my betting. But that's not where I'm not saying this. I don't want people to think, oh, he's complaining about the way the riders rode because he didn't cash a bet.
That's all right. I'll complain in a minute.
Okay. I just thought it was kind of an aberrant situation, and they just went way too slow and conceded the race. Another thought from that race is Chad Brown's runner.
Il Campagnon.
I would give another chance. I thought it ran like a short horse.
Okay.
I thought was, made that nice move into the race and just found nothing in that way. And as Eric Wing, maybe this is the next drinking game. Every time Eric Wing comes up on the podcast, take a shot. Quite correctly pointed out that Chad Brown's trainer comments going into the race all basically pointed to that scenario. That if the horse had been on top form, would have run in the Manhattan. Might have won the Manhattan, as it was. But I feel like that's a built-in, believable excuse, and I wouldn't hold against Il Campione the way they bet him.
I think the other story coming out of the race, too, was that Vijak likes the turf.
Oh, yeah? Vijak ran real well?
I think there's a couple things about him I'll go into. What do you think, though, overall?
Yeah, I just did not see King Kreesa getting the lead and hanging on. I going into the race, that was not the way I handicapped it at all. I thought Heart to Heart, especially off of that last race at Monmouth, where you're right, Pete. If you watch the replay, he stumbles out of the gate.
It was like I thought he broke with his head in the air. Really.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, but he did break a step.
Definitely
slow.
Was not a good break.
And then let I believe it was a 30-1 shot, 40-1 shot get loose around the backstretch and ran huge and just got nipped late. If he ran
so game that day.
Yeah, if he ran anything close to that race, I saw him as the most likely winner. The only reason why I didn't pick him on the podcast is I thought he was going to be too low. I did not think he was going to be 6 or 7-1. And so I thought he was and the horse I picked on the podcast was 5-2, the Todd Pletcher horse, who I thought had a less likely winner than Heart to Heart, and I was getting half the price. So, yeah, turn the page, I guess.
I mean,
Let's hear it.
This is a major issue.
Okay.
It's a major issue. We talked about it on DRF Live earlier. This is if you're watching this on Thursday or Friday. We talked about it on Wednesday. If you can't go through and use the form and get a gauge of where a horse is going to be positioned, throw it up because it literally does no good. So when you have a one-way speed horse and you don't go to the front, when you break fine, you've changed. Not only have you changed the complexion if you like that horse, but you have changed the overall shape of the race.
Right. Poor Vijak, right?
Poor Vijak, poor Il Campagnon, poor whoever else you want. I thought the most disappointing horse in the race, and it sounds crazy, Pletcher's horse.
Yeah.
Because just even throughout.
Yep.
I didn't think did any running. When you do that, and look, I don't want to be critical of jocks. We've gone over
We're not
this.
jockey knockers on this show.
It's just, and I said it way back when there was a race that I called it earlier. I said this is the discrete. I'm going to call it a discrete mark from now
I
on.
don't know what that was.
Fornatel's breaking stuff. Yeah. It's the discrete mark where you have just everyone grabs and you give a horse with back class an easy lead and they make you pay for it. Well, guess what? I can't predict that's going to happen on paper. That's not a logical scenario. So when you do that, it screws up everything else, and you're not going to get a formally run race. So a horse like Vijak, who twofold. One, maybe he just really wanted the grass. He came home in 11 flat, got his final 8th in 11 flat. I mean, he was moving.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, you got him back to a mile. Why were you trying to run him at 9 and 10 and 9.5? He didn't want to go that far. You get him back, his best race of his career, 1 turn down the Kelso. Then this race, a good second behind a decent horse. And Il Campagnon, this to me this is the perfect race for him. They all but came out and said this was a prep, basically, for the Arlington Million. He wants longer, and he's going to do better with that. I thought they all ran very well. King Kreesa, good on him. Good on the old boy for getting it done.
Took advantage.
That's
what you got to do.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Jose Ortiz, good for you.
Good,
You know what? If they're going to let you go, go. It's mind-boggling. I said it way back when on that show that Saturday when Dan and I were on. The Southern California riders just embarrass these New York riders. They do. I'm from just using, with the exception of it blows my mind how there can be such a difference. I mean,
They're
Tyler
more aggressive.
Bayes on
They're
the front
much more aggressive out there.
is lethal on the front, and it kills me because we know these riders in New York are good.
I think
what is going on?
I still think, talent-wise, I still think it's a supremely. I mean, obviously, this is not saying anything controversial. New York Colony, talent-wise, it's incredible, but it's like a culture.
Yeah,
In California, there's a culture of being aggressive that would be nice to see some of the New York guys apply a little bit more.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're right that in Southern California, you will not see a horse get a half in 52. What was the name of it? Snowbell?
In the
Remsen Day?
Way back when? Yeah, in November.
Yeah.
You will never see that result in Southern California.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with the tracks, Santa Anita versus Aqueduct. That just has to do with you're not going to see a horse walk out there. And I think that was the big reason when Rosario came here from Southern California. I remember up at Saratoga early on. I mean, he was killing races on the front end of the grass because nobody would go. Yeah. Well, now, that's another story. But, I mean, just the idea that look, it's not going to work all the time, but my goodness.
It works sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, especially on horses that may look a little overmatched on paper if you let them go.
Right.
They're going to make you pay.
And we've said this before on this show. Our analysts have made this point too.
My papers.
You got to pick those up. We're not going to know where to go from here. But I think it's just an important point, and people should remember this when it comes. Everybody's so. You guys say players who lose, they want to blame a bias. Definitely that happens. But to me, the number one thing, players don't want to look in the mirror and admit they made a mistake handicapping.
Sure.
They like to blame jockeys.
Sure.
And for me, the particular kind of jockey error that I will not criticize is when they're too aggressive.
No,
that's what I'm kind of asking for.
Right.
It's like, be aggressive.
Going back to the Foster, I picked Paganol on the podcast. I have no issue with the way the race was run.
Robbie Alvarado tried to win.
If he was good enough, he would have done it.
That's all you can ask for, though. But you did what you gave your horse the best chance of winning.
Right.
That's all you can ask for.
Let's use another sport to use an analogy. Let's talk about basketball. Let's talk about football. Let's talk about baseball. You're the best team in the league. And you don't approach it like, well, we're going to give up 4 runs in the first 3 innings because we're good enough to catch.
We'll give you a head start.
In a major league sport, the worst team can beat the best team, especially if you give them an advantage early. And the same goes for racing. So that'll be my last word on the subject. If you guys want, keep going.
I mean, like I said, it's one of those things. It's very frustrating when you have to deal with that and you think this is how the race is going to be run. And even for someone like me, who I mean, I bet the race. I didn't do it in public handicapper because I didn't think I was going to get any price, but I bet long on value. Now look, he just wasn't very good. I think you were in 5th or 6th, but he's another one. He was compromised by the way that race was set.
Right, exactly. And I'm glad you didn't make it a jockey criticism, because I think, who was on long on value? I'm so bad with jockeys after the race. Rosario. He'd handicap the race like we handicapped the race.
Right.
That horse obviously had the speed.
Rosario was at Churchill.
Yeah, but him and Javier rode in New York and then flew.
Oh, they flew. Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's amazing. This jet technology.
Well, I forgot it was the night card. It was the night card.
But
okay.
I think he'd handicapped the race and saw all this speed.
Yeah.
That horse, obviously, if you told Rosario, oh, by the way, they're going to strangle heart to heart, he's never going to be comfortable step, he would have been right off the flank of King Kreesa.
I'll go back to the Derby. I picked Frosted. Rosario was on Frosted. He couldn't have anticipated a 47 1/2. If it was going 46 flat and where he was positioned, it would have worked.
Right.
I'm not going to fault him for that.
Right.
That's not his fault. The race just went a little bit slower than I think everyone thought it was going.
So I would give long on value. I would give him an excuse for that. Even though I'm really mounting up. This is my 3rd excuse for him in a row. We're getting a lot of excuses.
Yeah, you get to a certain point and you go, how many times can I give you the pass?
But this is probably the last. This is one more for him for me. I was not. I picked him and I bet him, and I thought he was a victim of the theft.
My nickname for him, right?
For who?
Long on value.
He's short on value. Right?
Well, fair.
It's not his wins. He's been 10 to 1.
Right. He's only playable when he's a price, and
Well, that's the crux of it, and that's a nice transition point right
like
here.
it. I like
Segue.
it. Lead in.
The Shoemaker out in Southern California.
There you go.
Okay. This is a 5-horse field. This was billed as the matchup between Midnight Storm and Bala Bali. I thought Midnight Storm ran a great race. Bala Bali, I have no idea what the hell happened. And then Talco comes and wins at 13 to 1. And there was a Twitter interaction where I had said, right before the race went off, and Dan and Lonnie, who were on live on Saturday, they used it. I had said, at 13 to 1, he's an unlikely winner, but Talco's an overlay.
Definite overlay.
Now, someone had mentioned to me, and this is not something that she was right or wrong about. It was just trying to explain, and I didn't want it to come across as, like bashing or anything. There's a difference between an unlikely winner and value.
Right.
Of course.
Now, when I went through and made my line for the race, I'll give you the 3 horses that I had the big percentages with. I had Bala Bali and Midnight Storm at like 38 and 37%. Then I had Talco at 15%. 15% translates to 6 to 1. Essentially, the public had him at 13 to 1, so about 8%, 7 or 8%. Strictly from a value standpoint, I got almost twice what I had made the horse, or 33% on top. Just because he, in that situation, 15%, that's still a rather unlikely winner, but at the end of the day, he was great value because he's not that much worse than those other horses.
Exactly. No, it was very well said, and people don't understand that. And the other mistake they make sometimes is to assume just because the price is big, 30 to 1, that horse is great value. Well, maybe he has a 1% chance to win, then it's terrible value.
Right.
Well, and that's like I said, I'll give you 500 to 1 on the Washington Generals.
Right, exactly. And that's the only thing. And like I said, I didn't want it to come across as, snarky or, agitated or whatever. It was just, I think too many people get stuck into the idea of, well, who's going to win?
Right.
Well, this game at the end of the day is not necessarily, we can say it's about picking winners.
You do need to do that.
You do need to do that, but at the end of the day, to make money, you got to pick the winners, but at the right prices.
Oh, 100%. It's a culture of who do you like. Speaking of, I'm talking a lot about culture.
100%. 100%.
But if you want to make money over the long term, that is, of course, it's a part of the equation, and you're going to be a weirdo if you never answer the question, who do you like, and you start equivocating about your value line and this and that. But the fact of the matter is that value line is what's going to keep you in the black.
That's how you're going to make money.
Yeah.
I think what you're getting at is the name of the game. It's picking winners and cashing bets, but it's also about finding what you deem to be market inefficiencies and exploiting them.
100%. You're looking for a deficiency or a difference between what you think and what the public thinks.
Right.
And then you try to exploit it.
Right.
And that's the other reason why you don't bet every race.
Right.
Because you'll never win.
Good luck.
You got to pick your spots, and you've got to really look for the opportunities that offer big value. This race right here, we'll go into it. This is on Wednesday. Our Wednesday race of the day, Dan and I, it's the 4th at Belmont. It's coming up here shortly. In the race, I picked the number 10 horse, Grey Walls. She's 5-1. I said I would want probably 10. I didn't make a full-blown line, but 10, that puts her at about 9%. I don't want any part of her at 5-1. I'm not going to bet her. I'm going to watch the race, and maybe I'll fool around with an exacta or a trifecta or anything. But at the end of the day, I'm not getting value. There's going to be plenty of 5-1 shots that I like more than this one that I can bet down the road.
Yeah, well, it's a great attitude, and it's one that a lot of people don't, especially newer people, don't understand right away. There's a lot of times where it's the fourth most likely winner. If you had a 1, 2, 3 in the paper, it wouldn't even be one of them, but that's the bet because that horse should be 8-1 and is 20-1.
Right.
And if you have the discipline to stick to those kind of bets, God bless you. You've got a chance to make money in this game.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just, again, using another sport as an analogy. It's like, yeah, I know every now and then when Clayton Kershaw faces Madison Bumgarner might hit a home run off of him. That is not the most likely result. And if I'm getting not enough odds to justify making a wager like that, I will take the overlay, or the more likely result at a better price, which is that Bumgarner will strike out.
But if somebody gives you 1,000-1, maybe that's about what it would take.
Right.
Another analogy, another way of looking at it would be if you let's just use the NFL draft, or no, we're coming up soon on the NBA draft. We'll use the NBA, where the way things look right now, you've got a three-headed monster, you've got Karl Anthony Towns, you've got Jahlil Okafor, and you've got the kid from Ohio State.
Yep.
Well, if you have that number 1 pick, and you're not sold on one of them being, your guy, you can easily move to 2 or 3, get extra value, get another pick out of whoever is going to trade with you, and you're still going to get something. So all I'm saying is you don't necessarily, just because you like someone, doesn't mean you have to take them. You can still get something comparable a little bit farther down the line and get something more. The added value that they would get would be a pick and a good player. In our spot, it would be you're getting the proper odds that you're looking for. I just think that, there's a difference between most likely, and that's the same thing too. If you look down the road, like as drafts continue on, as you get later and later in the first round, the second round, whatever it is, and you see Mel Kiper's big board or whoever it is, and they say overall they have this player ranked as the 12th overall player. It happened with the Patriots this year, where they had the 32nd pick, and the defensive tackle from Texas, they had him ranked overall as the 12th or 13th best player. At that point, that's the value. Yeah. That's the value. You can get your flyer cornerback in the second round. You can do that then. Don't reach then. Take the one that's the value.
I got one, and you guys both gave analogies.
Yeah,
I got an analogy.
Yeah.
This one's from a book I worked on about 10 years ago with my friend Frank Scatoni called 6 Secrets of Successful Bettors. Mm-hmm. And in it...
It's a great book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Pro bettor Dave Cascuna, talking about these kind of issues, said, they're at a certain price... And it might be a penny against Warren Buffett's assets, but at a certain price, I'm a good bet, and it's a bit of a dated analogy, but I'm a good bet, or I'd be a good bet to go home with Cindy Crawford tonight.
Right.
If the price is enough, it might be worth just taking a little bit of a shot.
Yeah, and really, that's all it comes down to, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I was lucky enough when we were doing the Horse Players show, I feel like I learned this part of it from, I would make the argument, the best in the game from a value standpoint, Christian Helmers.
He's good with his overlays.
He is strictly, it is nothing more than probability and deciding where you think is the most probable or a probable outcome compared to what the public says is an improbable outcome, or vice versa. And I just think that that's the way why he's been so successful, and that's why I think in the long run you have to do that if you're going to make money.
Yeah, selection, the last thing I'll say, and we get into it in that book a lot, the difference between being selection-oriented and value-oriented, that's like where you sort of grow up as a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, because at the end of the day, your picks aren't necessarily your bets.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. From
a racing standpoint, the last race we'll talk about before we just kind of freeform for a minute before we wrap up is the Adoration. Beholder wins over Warren's Veneta. I didn't get to see it live. I had to watch replays, and then we talked about it on DRF Live on Wednesday. I only have one word to describe it. Class.
Yeah.
I mean,
she won on her class.
She just exudes class.
Yeah.
She's the kind that, I mean, right now, I don't think any filly or mare is close there.
Well, the only thing she has to do is keep it going.
Stay sound.
She's had these problems so many times. But I will say this. Mandela, not a bragger about his horses, after the race sounded genuinely thrilled and talked about how much better she was going to be next time. I thought she was pretty darn good that time. What figure did she earn? Do we know?
98.
Okay.
So it's a little on the light side.
But that matches the Mandela quote, you know?
Well, but that also goes back to what we've talked about in the past 2 weeks in the office about, well, we even talked about it on the podcast with like American Pharaoh and the 105 buyer. Whether you agree, disagree, whatever it is, let your eye tell you.
Yeah.
Beholder gets a 98. For me, that could have been a 1. She could have run off the page if she wanted. So that's the only thing I'll say about it.
Absolutely. I mean,
I hope she stays with us and does some good stuff. She could be special. I mean, she is special, but she could do more special things, and that'd be super fun as a racing fan.
I think the division is hers. If she
For the
stays
taking.
healthy.
For the taking. She's got to do, you know, she's got to just, you know, stay on the racetrack. That's all.
I think Warren's Veneta, she ran a great race. I mean, she was, what, 7.5 clear of third.
Yeah.
No.
And Dan and I brought up something interesting that we were talking about. You've got to assume with the issues that Beholder's had recently that she's going to stay in Southern California. They're not going to get crazy and send her to Saratoga or anything like that.
The last ship east didn't work out so well.
If you're Craig Lewis and the connections of Warren's Veneta, I mean, Dan and I were in agreement. I don't know what you guys think. You zig when she zags. So if she stays home, why can't you go to Saratoga and grab grade ones for big dollars?
Yeah, go run against the Godolphin filly.
Yeah, Wedding Toast. Are you terrified of Wedding Toast? Are you terrified right now of this untappable? Look, Warren's Veneta fits in there just as well. And you know, I think that would be the way I would look at it.
That's a good call.
Are you terrified of any of the horses in the Fleur de Lis?
No, that's just it. I mean, are you afraid of Frivolous or sheer drama? You know?
I don't think any of those are anywhere near Beholder's league. And I think you might be right that Warren's Veneta is at least as good, if not better, than any of those.
Yeah, I just think it would be a really, and it sounds crazy that you're saying like you're dodging competition and you can still go and win big prizes, but
win the more prestigious races.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say. I mean, Beholder will be down at Del Mar, which there's nothing obviously.
No, I'm not knocking Del Mar, but you know what I mean.
You go up to Saratoga. You can win a race like the Personal Ensign. You can win, or there's still something I don't know timing wise. The prep for the Delaware Handicap is this Saturday. It's the Obeah. I would imagine that still may be an option for Warren's Veneta. But then you've got Stop Charging Maria, who's waiting in the wings. But there's plenty of options out there. And you know what? Maybe she's earned a break. She's had a long campaign for a while without any breaks. So
the story of that division is in progress. I mean, it's obvious who we think the best one is, and hopefully she can prove it. But if you're Warren's Veneta, why not try to get into the mix yourself?
And we didn't really talk about it as an outcome of the Shoemaker Mile, but what about that division?
Well, and that's what I was going to lead into now that we've kind of gone through our races. Talco wins. I think Dan and I were in agreement. I think you guys would agree. I mean, Talco's a good horse.
Yeah, I like Talco.
It's a very nice horse. I think Midnight Storm, out of those 5 coming out of that race, that's the one that could be the one that could kind of break through and maybe become the one.
Or even Balabali, if you can forgive the effort.
Well, that's the only thing. Is I mean, I don't.
Did we hear a story?
No.
I haven't heard.
It's probably
I haven't
a story.
looked.
I haven't looked.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, he just didn't run. You know, you look at the field in the poker. I mean, are you terrified of anyone in there? Not really. He didn't run today. He scratched. And he's technically, apparently, he's still an option for the Coral Eclipse over at Sandown. If you're the Connections of California Chrome, if you don't want to run him on the dirt, that's fine. If you want to try him on the grass, or it's going to be easier on his feet and he's got a little bit of an abscess or whatever it is, why can't you come over here? I think 8 may be a hair sharp, but he could do it. Why couldn't you take advantage of this division over here, that middle distance on the grass?
It's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of it, but it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, what's to say you can't go to Saratoga and win the Baruch at 9 or any of the 4-Star Dave or any of those sorts of races? Who are you afraid of?
Right, because what did Talco do other than flatter California Chrome there?
Exactly. You know, and that's the thing.
That's all he's done since he ran against California.
It's true.
You know, so, and that was the thing. And you said it, you know, jokingly yesterday walking by, like, well, you know, Talco wins, would you bet California Chrome in the
No, I said it last week.
Or was it last week?
Yeah,
Jeez,
I said if what happens if Talco wins the Shoemaker Mile? Does that flatter California Chrome and ASCOT?
Pitch him out no matter what. But I think over here it's a different ballgame.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm a little cynical about his chances of doing anything against their best horses over there. But
I don't think he has a chance.
And
here?
And, you know, I'll sing it. What the world needs now is Wise Dan. Right?
What is going on?
I don't know. He's back in training. He's back in training.
I was going to ask. He's appeared on work tabs?
No, I don't know if he's officially I think
jogging.
He's jogging.
Okay.
I think he's back. Might be back at the track.
Man, what are we thinking? Like a 2-race campaign?
Maybe. Time's running out.
Could you do that though?
Yeah, I don't know.
Think about that. If you did that.
I got 2 words before your time, but look at it.
No. You're going to say. Don't say it. Don't say it. You're going to say the horse that Dickinson trained.
The Haas.
The Haas. Right.
The Haas.
It's been done.
I mean, I suppose. Think about that. That would be 2 races in what, like a year and a half?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Sounds like the Haas.
Man, that would be. That's a lot. And look,
he might have the talent advantage over the horses we've been talking about.
This is no disrespect to the people that own these horses. I would love to own one of them. They're not very good on the grass. I mean, let's call it for what it is.
They're not world class.
Well, and so.
Well, clearly not.
And going back to Vijack, perhaps this also is part. Maybe he wanted grass the whole time, but maybe there's something about a horse that isn't performing against our top dirt horses, just stepping up, if they can take to the surface at all, against the type of talent that is showing up in the top turf horses, turf races.
I mean, I think it's a very fair thought that, you know, I mean, look, if Wise Dan is still capable, I think they're gonna be very, very grateful with him though. Any hiccup, I would imagine he's retired. Hey. But look, I don't know. I mean, it'd be crazy. It would be crazy if can you imagine the fevered pitch if he were to come back, whether it's at Saratoga or.
I guess that's the best case scenario, right? Late in the meet.
Well, would it be, or would it be keep him at Keeneland? And you run him in the
Keeneland, the big mile,
whatever,
Shadwell
Turf Mile, and then wheel him back 3 weeks.
And what about a Breeders' Cup? I mean, now we're moving way ahead, but what about a Breeders' Cup that would feature Wise Dan and American Pharoah, and I mean, can you imagine?
We got a long way to go,
but that would you talk about a fever pitch.
You mean on the card, right?
Right.
I think we give up on the
race. No. Well, and you're putting together a pick 4 where you're linking or trying to beat.
And that O'Brien will send something over.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen some performances thus far at the ASCOT meet.
Have you guys been watching? I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't
been
been
watching
a
ton.
attention.
We went through some of them. I mean, I think that this Free Eagle is a really, really good horse.
But
I know
the Great Gatsby is the one I want out of that race.
They're both 4-year. No, actually, Free Eagle maybe 5.
Yeah, but he's more lightly raced.
But he's only raced 5-6 times in his career. So we've got them. You've got Gleneagles, who is an absolute superstar for O'Brien. O'Brien came out and said the best miler he's ever trained.
Wow.
There's potentially going to be that meeting in the Sussex between he and
Solo.
Thank you, Solo. Who that would be I said earlier that would kind of be reminiscent of Frankel and Camford Cliffs before Camford Cliffs went off. That was who? It was Camford Cliffs, right?
He beat Camford Cliffs in the at Ascot, right?
Yeah.
At Goodwood.
Yeah, I believe it was Goodwood. So it'd be interesting to see. There's a lot of good things down the road that we'll see. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, everything stays as is and we continue on. But
that is fun when you get to see the leader of when you see that best 3-year-old miler face off against the best older miler. It gives you a real perspective on the form.
Absolutely. Sure. So, any kind of closing thoughts before we wrap up for the day?
I don't have any others. I covered all the bases I wanted to.
No, I think getting excited. I'm going to Santa Anita next week.
I'll be out there as well.
Might see you out there. That could be fun.
Well. Yep.
Lots of tournament players. Last chance to qualify for that tournament on DRF. Qualify will be this Saturday or Sunday.
Cool. Closing weekend.
Check the schedule.
Closing weekend at Santa Anita.
And you know who we're going to get to see? You just saw him.
Jonathan Kinchen.
Well, that's true, but I was thinking much bigger than that. No offense, Jonathan. American Pharoah going to be parading.
Again?
Again. Out in California. How close did you get to him?
When I was down there?
Yeah, at Churchill.
Oh, boy.
Jonathan?
It's Kinchen?
The Pharoah.
I mean, I was in a really good spot. I was in Suite 0, which is where the owners, they have them 20 through 1.
Man, he must know somebody.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the camera was set up. So I was on the finish line. Oh, not as close to the finish line as you can be, but he came through. He was a mess.
Oh, really?
Oh, he was losing. Yeah, he was.
Do you think he was racing or something?
No, I just think that it was hot, it was humid, it was a really gross night. And
Earplugs off?
I don't know, but I just know that Jimmy Barnes came out afterward and said it's been a long night for everyone. He's not even going to go out to the track tomorrow. He got a little bit, I don't want to say he got freaked out, but he got a little bit,
He has some crowd issues.
Yeah, he has some crowd issues, and then especially when you consider he's not running. He was just going out, and he's got all these people just gawking at him.
It's got to be very confusing for the horse.
And probably
to be
very
fair.
stressful, yeah. So I know that he got a little wound
Hopefully
up.
they're not going to cancel this plan, because I was looking forward to getting a chance to see him parade
I
out
also
there.
think, too, though, but a lot of it had to do with, it was really an uncomfortable night. It was hot, it was humid, there was lightning, it was just not a...
Gotcha.
But,
Horses don't like lightning.
No. So I'm not going to... it'll be interesting to see, though, if they do. They do that, I assume, on Gold Cup Day on Saturday, right?
Yes, that was the report.
And the tournament is a 2-day event?
Yes, it's 2 days. It's a $5,000 buy-in. You pay $1,000 that goes to the entry fee. $4,000 acts as a live bankroll. You can bet on any of the Santa Anita races. No supers, no picks, but win, place, show, exacta, trifecta. And the prize pool is expected to be worth about 100 in seats to the BC, BCN, NHC, and also cash prizes. The first 2 winners in this series both qualified on DRF qualify for less than 100. You can have a chance to qualify for 100 this weekend. Why not turn that 100 into 50 or 60,000 like Gary Johnson did and like Stephen Wells did?
You'll see this guy out there. I'll be out there working Saturday, but then Sunday, just enjoy, take it all in.
Hang out at the front runner, have a couple of drinks, and watch some horses?
The last thing that we might as well watch this Wednesday race of the day before we cut out.
Let's do it
on the podcast.
Who wants to channel their inner Travis Stone and call the thing?
Gray Walls is 3-1. And I would not touch this horse with a 10-foot pole at 3-1. I was just thinking about flirting around. I'm not going to do anything crazy here. We're waiting for one more. Now, this is an interesting thing that we can talk about. There was there was an entry for Godolphin. They scratched the horse from the original, the plain one, to run the 1A. Now, I don't know if that was a combination of because of the softer ground that we have here in New York, but I just thought that was very intriguing that this horse is on the outside looking in. They took out the one that was going to run.
To let this one run.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Who has speed, 18-1. This is Sudastada.
What kind of race is this?
This is 7 furlongs on the grass. This is Maiden Special.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
This is it right here, if you'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Maiden Special.
Find the winner in 2
3-year-olds.
seconds.
Or maybe older, yeah.
Find the winner
You
in 2
can rip
seconds.
through it.
Chad Brown, first-time starter for Christopher Clementi. He's good. I'll take
I
that
will
one.
say the 12 Kinsley right now is an overlay, I think. I shouldn't say an overlay, probably pretty fair. 8-1. That's Pletcher on the outside. I think that one can run a little bit. In order, I went 10, 3, 12, I believe. I set it up in the top corner.
You went 10-3-12.
10, 3, 12.
Yeah.
The 3 is Chad Brown's horse. That horse, 100-year something, 100-year storm, was an absolute head case in her debut down at Gulfstream in March. She had some time off. Now she's going to come back in this spot. Looks like they're all in the gate, and they're off. Gates sprung. Right to the front, Sudastada's trying to get there. You're going to have Scamper coming. Scamper is making second-time start for Abby Adsit. Horse is the highest last-out buyer in the field and totally disrespected at 10-1. Coming attraction, the 4 is down on the inside stalking. You got Gray Walls on the far outside, a long shot in Katai, or Katal, however you pronounce it, at 85-1. Bringing up the rear is where's Papa. Going through, we don't have any fractions just yet, but Scamper's out there on her own, which that could be dangerous because this is a horse who's not bad. 23 flat for the opening quarter. Dave Grenning on DRF Live had said earlier that he didn't think it was properly yielding. He thought it was still probably good to firm. It's just that this course needed some water. Those 2 have opened up right now.
Anybody get into this thing on the front end?
I don't know. They've opened up. This is the Godolphin horse, the one we just mentioned, Studasada, Scamper. They're well clear of the field right now. Somebody's really going to have to put their running shoes on. 46-1 for the half mile. Looks like Scamper beginning to back up. And here comes the Godolphin runner who really hasn't been asked to run a step yet. Striking the front. The rest of the pack is starting to move. You have Gray Walls putting in her run. If she changes leads, she's got a shot.
Shortening stride.
Let's see. But the Godolphin horse is moving on continuously. Here comes Gray Walls. She's going to try. I don't think she's going to get there. Oh, maybe she is. Maybe she is going to get there. On the outside, we've got Wonder Brew, who's moving beautifully on the outside. Wonder Brew.
Ginger Brew's baby.
Wonder Brew's not going to get there. It's going to be Gray Walls. The 10 is going to win it. So, again, this goes back to the idea that I picked her. I didn't want any part of her at 3-1.
Right, and you shouldn't, the sort of impulse that people, the wrong impulse that people have that eventually leads to them losing a lot of money would be for you to be mad at yourself.
No. Yeah, not at
I
all.
picked, but...
If anything, be happy. You were right.
Right.
You picked the winner.
I love
validate,
that.
You validate your
right,
opinion.
Yeah, and have the strength, have the courage of your convictions to know, you know what, good pick, wasn't a good bet, and I kept my hand in my pocket, and isn't that great?
There's going to be plenty of opportunities to go forward.
Another race in 30 minutes?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things. Coming attraction was Shug's horse. I didn't like that one at all. We had mentioned the 6 at a big number was one that you could have played with. So maybe if I really wanted to go back and say I should have done, Dan and I both agreed, and we had someone tweet in at us that the 6 Wonder Brew coming from Gulfstream was an exotics possibility. 16-1 ran second. So
Well, I'm sure you remember her her dam Ginger Brew.
Of course.
She was a great
Stronic.
filly.
all right, so that was that. Thanks for watching. If you're on DRF Live, if you're listening to us, obviously, thanks for listening as you normally do. Until Friday, when we'll do our show again, we'll go over the PH races. Pete, take it away.
May you win all your photos.